So we are kicking straight onto this next session. As an Aussie, standing here in Vegas, having flown here from Portugal, but residing in Toronto, yes, I get confused where I am too sometimes, but Shopify is a name that I know. It is one of Canada's greatest tech success stories and much more than just an e-commerce company headquartered in their nation's capital. Shopify claims and is quite rightly proving to be the best e-commerce platform when it comes to everything you need to sell online, in social media or in person. Shopify sees that a new retail paradigm is upon us, one that combines old-fashioned values with new shopping preferences. Driving that shift, they say, is one simple truth. A lemonade stand charging $1 will experience far better margins than a beverage company selling lemonade in a bottle at a grocery store for, say, $3. This renewed preference for an old-school approach of selling direct to consumers is underpinning an explosion of over 100 million online businesses that are choosing to sidestep that middleman and really in favour of controlling their brand and selling direct to their customers online. Here to take us through this direct-to-consumer revolution fueling the new world economy is Shopify's COO, Harley Finkelstein. He founded his first company at 17. He's also completed his law degree, has an MBA, all while co-founding his own company and studying for the Canadian MBA oath. He is an active advisor, one of the dragons on CBC's Next Gen Den, so look out, a member of the Order of Ottawa, the 2017 recipient of the Canadian Angel Investor of the Year Award, and one of Canada's top 40 under 40. What a man. The list goes on, believe me. But let's get on with the show. Ladies and gentlemen, he's wearing awesome shoes too. It's Harley Finkelstein.
Whatever you do. Loud. Thank you. Do it good. Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much for joining me. Before I begin, I always like to kind of do this before any presentation. Show of hands in the room, how many of you have used Shopify or know someone that has used Shopify? Great. That means I don't have to explain what Shopify does, which is fantastic. So let's get to the most important part of my presentation, which is what am I wearing today? And I'm wearing Allbirds shoes, Bombas socks, Kid and Ace pants, Son of a Tailor t-shirt, and a Movement watch. And many of you in this room also wear brands just like this. In fact, more and more people are wearing these exact brands. But what do all these brands that I'm wearing have in common? Everything that I am wearing was purchased from the exact same people who actually made the garments. This is intentional. This is actually the new normal. That all of us are buying the products from the people that actually make the products. All of these brands that I'm wearing are direct-to-consumer brands, and every one of them have been created in the last 8 years. So what do I mean by direct-to-consumer? What is this definition that we keep talking about? Well, I think direct-to-consumer brands are those that make their products, they market their products, they sell their products to the end consumer. And they are natively vertically integrated and own the entirety of the retail stack. These native brands, they bypass the intermediaries, they bypass the marketplaces, and they bypass the resellers. And I believe that the future of retail belongs to direct-to-consumer brands. So before we dig in, I want to start with a bit of a history of retail. The store you see up there is Wanamaker's department store. It was created in 1875 in Philadelphia by a brilliant entrepreneur and politician named John Wanamaker. He was also the guy who coined the phrase, 50% of my marketing works, the problem is I don't know which 50%. But John Wanamaker was an early pioneer of retail, and he really came up with the concept of the department store, a single place where brands and makers and producers from all over the world can put their goods so that consumers can come in and purchase them. These large stores, these large department stores, all took their cue from Wanamaker's. This was the original third-party intermediary. And it set the tone for the next 125 years of retail. Sure, we saw bigger stores happen, more lighting. People added things like water parks in department stores and shopping malls, but it was effectively the same thing over and over again. And the value that all these department stores provided to the consumer and to the brands was that they had distribution. Otherwise, these brands would not be able to get into the hands of the end consumer. And if you fast forward till 25 years ago, this is where things begin to get a little bit more interesting. The internet introduced us to e-commerce for the first time. But early e-commerce was really kind of lame. The e-commerce software that was built 25 years ago was built specifically to help existing businesses grow bigger and not to support new businesses at all. And as a result, online individual stores all looked the exact same. And worst of all, new brands had absolutely no way of playing in this new retail paradigm. Then came the early 2000s, which saw an emergence of new e-commerce software like Shopify, which focused on helping new brands and support new businesses. And finally, for the first time ever, these new brands were able to be created. There was a path for them to get their products to market in a way that wasn't expensive and it wasn't overly complicated. So today, here's where we're at. There are now two distinct retail movements at work, and both of them are fueled by the internet. If you have a product today, you have two choices. Your first choice is to use a marketplace, which is less capital intensive, it's very easy to get in front of buyers, and there's low barriers to list. But you are effectively leasing or renting customers from those big marketplaces. The other way, which I think is preferred and more effective, is this direct-to-consumer version, where consumers and brands communicate with each other directly, and they bypass third-party intermediaries that historically controlled the way brands generated value. And when you combine both the marketplaces and the direct-to-consumer model, you get a massive e-commerce market. $1.9 trillion is going to be sold in e-commerce this year alone globally. And that's going to go up to about $4 trillion in the next couple of years. One of the things, though, one of the criticisms that I've heard around direct-to-consumer is that it is just a fad. And I completely disagree with that. I believe that retail and commerce should have always been direct-to-consumer. The problem was there was no way to do it. And so finally, now that we can do it, I believe it will become the new retail paradigm. We're seeing brands like Casper and Glossier and Dollar Shave Club and Warby Parker. These are not fad brands. These are brands that will last, and they represent a lasting shift in the way that consumer and the consumer economy operates. With the direct-to-consumer, the internet has now become the middleman. The internet is now the intermediary and allows anyone to go direct, removing the need for these third parties, these big marketplaces. This is a really big deal because for the last 140 years, most consumers had a relationship with the retailer, whether it was the grocery store or the department store. For the last 140 years, consumers did not have a relationship with the actual brands behind the products that they were buying. So now that we have a good understanding of what DTC is, I think we should talk about what are the factors driving this incredible new retail paradigm. First of all, technology is playing a huge role. So tools like Kickstarter and PayPal and HubSpot and GitHub and MTurk and my own company, Shopify, we are lowering the barrier to entry into retail and commerce. We are leveling the playing field so that anyone that wants to open their own business can absolutely do so. And now these small businesses, these entrepreneurs, these makers, they now have access to tools that historically were completely limited to them as they were focused on big companies that had a lot of money to spend and very, very big teams. This technology movement has completely democratized this new retail paradigm. The second thing is there's now a shift in consumer preference. Consumer preference and attitudes have completely changed in the last 10 years. Today's consumers, they crave these niche products and personalized buying experiences. If you look at my watch, Movement watches, when you go to their site, that experience of selecting your watch face and the band and the styling of it and your ability to mix and match, that type of variety and customization is unmatched by the bigger companies. And that represents a huge opportunity for DTC brands where most of these large companies simply cannot afford to do so as quickly and as profitably. And third of all, what's driving DTC is social media. Platforms like Pinterest and Facebook and Instagram have now opened up these direct channels where these brands can communicate and sell directly to their consumers. At Shopify, we see an entire generation of these new businesses that are bypassing marketplaces like Amazon and other traditional distributors, selling directly to the consumers, directly from their social media channels. And the numbers show that when it comes to product discovery and the follow-through to purchase, consumers are very receptive. 70% of US consumers said they purchased a product recently that they first encountered in that brand's social media post. So for example, if I like skateboards, and I like skateboard photos on Instagram, but I also am resharing content about technology, well, the Venn diagram of my interest in skateboards and technology makes me the perfect customer for a motorized skateboard. Now, a company like Boosted Board can target me as the ideal customer for their product. That was not possible even 5 years ago. So why does this matter? This matters because there is massive business impact to this entire DTC movement. A simple fact is that direct-to-consumer companies have better margins because they don't have to pay off the intermediaries and give them a piece of their margin. This has led to so many new brands doubling down on their own direct channels. One of my favorite examples of this is Thinx, which is a feminine product company out of New York City. While they sell in retailers and marketplaces all over the world, they also have their own online store on Shopify. And because they're able to make so much more on that online store, they've shifted most of their sales to that direct channel. And today, 70% of their sales comes directly from the SheThinx website. The other piece of DTC from a business impact perspective is creative control. DTC puts these brands in the driver's seat when it comes to their brand identity. And because they own the channel themselves, they can demonstrate creative control that they couldn't get anywhere else working through a third party. This translates into direct marketing dollars. You look at a company like Everlane, which many of us in the room know. Everlane's brand is all about intentional products, concise, clean look and feel. And whether you use their search functionality on their online store, to their sizing page, to their checkouts, to the confirmation email you receive when you make a purchase from them, to even the way the package arrives, everything is on brand. They would never be able to do something like this had they had to work through a third-party intermediary. They can do this because it is their own channel, and they own every single step and every touch point with their consumer. The other piece of DTC, which is fascinating, is the need for venture capital or the need for funding. Because the cost to enter this market is now so low, these DTC brands do not require copious amounts of VC money as they once did. They now can build something in a bootstrap fashion. I mentioned Movement watches earlier, the watch that I'm wearing. 2013, Jake and Kramer, his partner, in a dorm room created Movement watches, bootstrapped the business. They got podcasters to talk about their product. They found influencers to wear their products for free. And in 2017, they sold $70 million worth of Movement watches. A couple weeks ago, Movado bought them for almost $200 million in an acquisition. They were able to bootstrap a business and grow the business with a velocity that had never been seen before in their space, in their vertical. That doesn't mean that there won't be venture capital and financing involved in DTC. In the first 8 months of 2018 alone in the US, $1.2 billion of venture capital went into these DTC companies, which is almost triple of that 5 years ago. But it's not necessary anymore. The other major impact of this DTC movement is that now brands can offer their products at much more affordable prices. While businesses generate better margins, consumers are now able to see more affordability. Because they're not marked up as much, a lot of those savings can be carried down to the end consumer. Many of us know about the story of Casper. They were the first direct-to-consumer mattress company, and they set off a massive wind of all these other direct-to-consumer mattress companies. Now, they had this idea or this objective, which was, let's create a bed in a box, produce the best, most comfortable mattress at an affordable price, but let's deliver it quickly and for free. And this forced them to consider how mattresses have always been shipped in the past. Because they wanted to be able to ship it for free, and because they own the fulfillment of their own products, it forced them to innovate on the way they package these mattresses. And they created that box there. They were the first company to put mattresses in a box like this. And today, Casper pays 90% less on shipping costs than all the other incumbent mattress companies. They were forced to innovate because they had no choice, because they weren't relying on a third party for fulfillment. DTC brands also have this incredible authentic connection to the customers they're serving. And that's established by direct communication and also transparency. And as I mentioned before, this is what consumers today are expecting. This t-shirt that I'm wearing, I'm a short, stocky Jewish kid, and for my entire life, no t-shirts ever fit me, ever. They were either too long or too tight. But I'm now able to go to a brand in a store like sonofatailor.com, where I put in my dimensions, I have a video chat with a tailor, they fit me for the perfect white t-shirt, they even put my initials on it. Then I receive it, I have another video conference with them, where they tell me, it looks good, we can make a couple adjustments. That sort of connection that I have to this brand is absolutely impossible to have had if I was working with a third party. And because I'm working with the people making the products who really care and frankly are obsessed with t-shirts, my experience and my connection to the brand is so much more rich. I talked about Boosted Board earlier. DTC also provides a much more unique and interesting integrated shopping experience. In June of this year, the new Boosted Board came out, and I love Boosted Board. When it's not snowing in Canada, I ride a motorized skateboard to work almost every single day. The new V2, new generation Boosted Board was coming out, and I really wanted it. And I had two options in terms of where I was able to purchase this board from. Option A was I can go to I can go to Best Buy, and I can buy it on Best Buy. Option 2 was I can go directly to boostedboard.com. I wanted it that day, and so I went to Best Buy, and I walked into the store, and I spoke to a retail clerk there, sales clerk, and I said, I want to know why this is different. What's the new speed of the new Boosted Board? How long does it take to charge? Is it able to go uphill in the way that the old Boosted Board wasn't? Is it waterproof? The last one wasn't so waterproof. And I got a blank stare. So frustrated, I left Best Buy, and I went to the boostedboard.com store online. And immediately upon getting to the site, a little chat box popped up in the bottom right-hand corner. And I asked the exact same questions that I did in Best Buy, except this time, I got all the answers. Every single one of the answers answered immediately. Now, even though I wanted to get the board that day, and I had to forego immediate delivery, my experience in having my questions answered by knowledgeable people who cared was so much better. Instead of Best Buy, where I would have got a salesperson who's a generalist, when I buy direct from the manufacturer, from the brand, I get a specialist. That's a much better experience for me. So how will this proliferation of DTC brands impact giant online retailers like Amazon or Walmart or any of the others? Well, it's important to acknowledge that curators and intermediaries are not going away. But what's going to change is that they will have to provide a disproportionate amount of value to justify their profit margin in the future. For Amazon, they do that. They justify their existence and their margin because they provide incredible price and great selection on things like household commodity items. And at Bergdorf or Barney's, they do that by having incredible curation and great personalized service, which us as the consumer feels, all right, I want to pay them a margin for it because they do add value. But for those retailers that are just defending their profit margin simply on the basis that they have a store in a particular location, distribution is no longer enough to justify them. And I also think what we're going to see is more of these consumer packaged good companies are going to begin to think about going direct to consumer with some of their most iconic brands. On Shopify in the last couple of years, we've seen Oreo and Lay's potato chips and Nestle coffee and Whirlpool appliances for the first time ever build stores on Shopify to sell direct to their end consumer. That never happened before. There's something else that I think is interesting about this whole DTC movement, which is that I think in the future, and as direct-to-consumer heats up, continues to evolve, everyone will be a merchant. So whether you're a celebrity, you're an athlete, you're a singer, more and more we're watching these incredible celebrities figure out a way to convert their fans and their influence base into shoppers by building really unique and authentic products. We're not talking about building promotional products. We're talking about Marshawn Lynch making t-shirts that he himself wears in practice and selling it to his fans. Or Kylie Jenner creating lipstick that she herself designed, manufactured, and wears to her fan base. And it's not just celebrities. We're starting to see people start to commercialize their hobbies. That couple that makes beautiful jewelry for their friends and family are now thinking about building a business around that and taking their hobby and making money with it. Or that retired couple that makes beautiful wooden children's toys in their workshop are now thinking about how they can build a business and sell their products and their wares to anyone they want. We've never seen that before. This idea of commercializing a hobby is very new, and it's very exciting. The other point on this everyone is a merchant concept is that there's an issue around ownership that's also changing. On the front cover of Forbes in July was Kylie Jenner. She built a $900 million business on Shopify, I might add. And she did that with 8 employees, and she owns 100% of it. Incredible story. Now, if you contrast that example, that story, with, say, someone like Michael Jordan, who also built a huge brand. In 2017, the Michael Jordan Jumpman brand sold about $3 billion worth of product. But Michael Jordan himself made a fraction of that because he doesn't actually own the brand. Nike does. In fact, he had no choice. When he signed that contract in the 80s to get endorsed and create that brand with Nike, he had no way of reaching the end consumer. He had no way of connecting directly with his fans. And so he had no choice but to sign a deal with Nike whereby they would own the brand and he would be paid a royalty. Kylie didn't have to do that because she can access her end consumers and her fans on her own. So how do we all differentiate ourselves in a world where expectations are higher from consumers, everyone is a merchant, and the pressure to provide more meaningful shopping experience is probably at an all-time high, more than it's ever been? Well, every example we talked about today, everything that I'm wearing right now has a couple things in common. One, they all give exceptional customer service. They all have great value in their product. They all create great products. They all have unique buying experiences. And every one of those things doesn't necessarily require capital. They're not capital intensive. Rather, they're actually creative intensive. So creativity is actually a far more important ingredient in this new retail paradigm than capital. And the manifestation of that, of all of this getting much easier, is that at Shopify, every 90 seconds, a new merchant makes their first sale on our platform. A new merchant every 90 seconds gets their first sale to their own online store that they own entirely. That is the future of retail. And the best part about it is that it will rest in the hands of these new DTC brands, the many, not the intermediaries, not the few. Thank you so much.
Whatever you do, Lord.
Awesome. Thanks, Harley. What an inspiring session. What an inspiring session. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. Right, that's it. We have covered this morning voice commands, smart cities, trust, and the consumer under a microscope. Finishing up now, doors reopen at 3:30. It's going to be an awesome afternoon. We're going to hear from Coinbase, Interstellar, our startup pitch finals with Shaquille O'Neal. I'm excited about meeting him and standing next to him. That's going to look amusing. So see you back here, 3:30 for a 4 o'clock start. Thanks.